Attention Hillsborough County, Unit 100 is now present.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, protect, and defend.
I repeat, Unit 100, your sheriff, Chad Chronister, is now here.
And I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Deputy Sheriff, on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
And now, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office brings you Keeping It 100 with Sheriff Chad Chronister.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 2 of Keeping It 100. I'm your host, Amanda Granite. I'm a Public Affairs Coordinator at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and joining me at our podcast table is Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister and Chief Deputy Donna Lusczynski. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, Amanda.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Everybody comfortable here at the table? Feeling good?
We're very comfortable. We even color coordinated our shirts
You
today.
match. I feel like if someone could have called me and let me know that we were wearing this black.
We'll make sure. We wanted to stand out
Next
a little
time.
bit.
Episode
You're the
3.
talent, so we had to stand out
All
in
right.
other ways.
Sounds good. So last episode, Sheriff, we got to hear a little bit about you, but Chief, I want to turn over the tables to you and hear a little bit about your background. Where do you come from? When did you join HCSO? And a little bit about your time here.
Okay, sure. I grew up in New Jersey and had wanted to be a marine biologist, quite different from where I ended up. So I came down here to the University of Tampa to study marine biology. As I continued through my education, I became more interested in law enforcement and criminology, and actually did an internship with the Tampa Police Department, and I fell in love at that point with law enforcement, changed my major, and as soon as before I graduated, applied to the Sheriff's Office and got hired.
That's great. What was kind of your first impression of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
It was just amazing to me how big of an agency it was, and the diversity and different job opportunities that there were for us. And just, it was fun. You know, I remember, starting out, and the sheriff and I worked together early in our careers and throughout, but it was a time where law enforcement was just fun. You go out and do your job, and at that time put the bad guys in jail and go home at night and just had a blast.
And I know, as you alluded to there, Chief, you guys, before you were the leadership of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, you actually worked together in a lot of different capacities. What was the first time that you guys met?
If memory serves me correct, I graduated from the academy a few months after the chief and was assigned to that USF area. It was a very high crime area at the time, and we ended up on the same call, and she probably doesn't remember this, but I remembered going to a call for service, and we went into their area because their area was busier. So went into her area under her line of supervisors, and I remember that someone was inside threatening suicide and wouldn't open up the door. And the chief, then Deputy Lusczynski at the time, said, "I'm going to kick the door down and go get her." So she did. Well, we were freaking out, like, you can't kick the door in and go get anybody. We were inexperienced. So she did, kicked it in. I remember her supervisor, I believe it was Teresa Johnson at the time, was a corporal. And I thought, oh boy, we're all getting written up. I'm going to get fired. I'm still on probation. And came and commended her. Okay, well, you did what you had to do. I was sweating it. But at the time, to be honest with you, and this isn't to become nostalgic, but the chief showed those leadership skills. Even on a squad, we all looked up to her on how she handled herself and handled investigations, how observant she was. Even back then, you could see how different deputies would gravitate towards her at any call for service.
And Chief, do you remember one of the first instances that you met the sheriff?
I do. There was times because, as he said, we weren't on the same squad, but they would kind of be our backup relief. And I was on a call, and I just remember him coming, and he was brand new at that time, and just asking questions and always being inquisitive and learning and wanting to be better. And that's still something we both preach to this day. We know we don't know everything, so how can we better ourselves and make this agency better?
And throughout my career, a lot of times I was assigned to areas under the supervision or even under the command of the chief at that time, and always looked up to her. Quite honestly, I say this without hesitation, I wouldn't be the sheriff or want to be the sheriff if I didn't have her as my partner. She's just brilliant at everything she does. She's an academic. I think we play well off each other, off of our skill set, off of each other's weaknesses. And I think that the community in our sheriff's office benefits because of the true partnership that we share.
Absolutely.
And, you guys were telling a little bit of a joke of a story earlier, but I'm going to bring it back up here. There's something about a beret.
When we were in narcotics, I had been assigned there first, so I had gone through my indoctrination into the unit, as we all do. And then the sheriff was assigned there, and he had some different partners, not I. But apparently he had to wear a little chauffeur's cap and drive them around for a period of time for a couple months. So he had his little cap and had his little assignment.
The hazing back then was real. They had a Lincoln Continental. They put cardboard up as a petition, and they bought me a chauffeur's hat, and I drove them around everywhere. We went to different deals. They really thought that the two drug purchasers and dealers that we had in the back, which were really undercover detectives, were something really huge, because I opened the door for them. I had to do the whole thing. That was my hazing and my indoctrination into the narcotics unit. The first week I was like, what did I do? I made the biggest mistake of my life.
That certainly changed, though, with your time.
Yes, it has.
And you guys worked in the narcotics field, battling that back then, but obviously our community is still plagued by drug addiction now. What did you learn back then in your time on the streets that has helped you lead the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office now?
I think, it's changed a little bit. Before it was put everybody in jail, and now we've certainly transitioned to where we realize we need to solve the problem through treatment and getting people help. But it also taught us how to deal with people, how to see and really see how bad the problem could be, and that years later, arresting people, we can't do it. That's not going to fix the situation. We have to work on treatment and providing services to people.
Yeah, how important enforcement is, we get that. We have to enforce the people out there dealing drugs and getting individuals addicted to those drugs. But the chief's exactly right. I think if we learned anything as we have evolved, is that we have to fix the problem, and that these aren't bad people. These are people who have an illness that need help, and that's why we've spent so much time, resources, financial resources as well, expanding the functions and services that we have inside our detention facility to get the individuals the addiction treatment that they need, so we're not just feeding this vicious revolving door.
A lot of our listeners will be members all across Hillsborough County, but also across Florida and possibly the country. What would a message be to those who have loved ones or are struggling themselves with drug addiction?
Hope, a message of hope that there is help available. Don't give up on your loved one. Keep trying to get them the help that they need. There's so many dangerous drugs out there now, with just a microcosm of fentanyl can kill somebody, and it's just, don't give up on them. Same with mental health. Probably our biggest obstacle moving forward. As a family member, you love them, keep pushing them to get them the treatment that they need, and don't give up on them.
When you became sheriff in September of 2017, you had the task of finding out who would be the next chief. Why did you decide, and why did the chief stand out to you?
I could be here for 3 days. We could make a mini series on why the chief's the most qualified individual to be the chief deputy of this agency. I said it earlier, when I found out that I was going to be appointed by the governor to be the sheriff, I immediately approached the chief and said, listen, I would only do this and take this opportunity if you agree to do this with me in a partnership. And again, because we're such great friends and because we've worked together, and I think I've learned so much working for her at different capacities throughout my career, it was just a no-brainer, knowing that we wanted to change the culture here at the office. We wanted to change the old mantra of arresting everybody and being tough on crime, and when we wanted to be smarter and be smart on crime. And somebody that has an open mind, someone who is progressive, knowing that our agency had a lot of catching up to do with evolving along with society. It was a no-brainer that she is the perfect person to be the chief deputy and lead this agency.
When the sheriff came to you, Chief, and said, I'm not going forward unless you do this with me, what was going through your mind?
Well, first I was obviously honored and humbled by that, but having worked with him over the years, it was an easy decision for me. We've both been in a line with our priorities at this office and what we think is important and how we can best help the community. So when he asked it was like that. I'd be honored and yes, and I couldn't have a better partner.
Probably the easiest conversation I've ever had in 29 years here in law enforcement at this agency. It just, nothing ever in my whole career felt more comfortable than having Donna Lusczynski as our chief deputy.
And the biggest question, he didn't make you wear a beret.
No, not yet. Just a cowboy hat.
No hazing process.
Not yet. Maybe this month.
We got away from the cowboy hat.
True.
So that was just the opposite.
And And back in 2017, what was your biggest challenge with the agency or your biggest goals for the agency?
There was a lot of goals. One of the biggest goals was making the agency about the employees again. We knew that the employees were lacking a lot of what they needed, from civilian employees all the way to law enforcement, all the way to any of the sworn deputies in the jails. They didn't have the equipment that they needed, and it's not me throwing stones at the previous regime. They just were missing so much. From there were better uniforms at the same price, more comfortable uniforms. There were guns that were failing, that we needed to get them different firearms, from changing technology in the cars to keep them safe, to different software programs to make sure our employees could be the most productive that they could be and be more efficient by having the proper tools. And we spent the first year, a large majority of it, just getting the employees the tools and resources and the training, because I think some of the training was lacking. Get them the training that they needed to be able to be the most professional versions of themselves. And that's probably, I would be proud of our biggest accomplishment, is just getting the employees the resources that they need.
And I think, too, trying to get additional buy-in from the employees and really hear their opinions and see what they want and they need. We're at a different level now where we don't see what the deputies do on a daily basis. We knew they do great work, but we don't know all the challenges and trials that they have. So getting some of their input and trying to fix it through technology, through different programs and stuff like that, I think that has helped us as well, and something we're proud of, making sure they know we're part of a team.
And we're moving into a new decade, 2020. We're going strong.
Yes.
What's the future of HCSO look like?
I still remember 2000 when everything was supposed to come to an end, and all vacations were canceled, and we had to work because the world was coming to an end.
Y2K.
Yeah, 2020. We've been spending a lot of time focusing on, the chief alluded to before, and it's actually fixing a problem, not putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And I think one of the biggest Band-Aids we've put on is inmates. And we alluded to it earlier when we were talking, is getting them healthy, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's mental health treatment. We've expanded both those programs. And this year it's exciting because now we moved into, okay, once you make them healthier, now you have to get them some type of training, because if you don't, now they're going to go back to the same ways and pattern behavior that they know, which is that criminal activity. So we're in the process of building a trade center where inmates will get the training they need, and a lot of great training, from welding to forklift operator to automotive mechanic, electrician, and plumbing. And we teamed up with Irwin Technical School. So even if they get out during the process, there are some grant programs that, as long as they're willing to commit to the finishing the program, they can complete it. It doesn't cost them any money. And now we're working, trying to get with some of the different trade unions and employers to now, even that last missing piece is to get them gainful employment. So if we make you healthy, now we provide you a skill. I just think that's the way we're going to break that cycle and lower the recidivism rate, and in turn keep the crime rate lower in Hillsborough County as we continue to have this explosion of population that are moving to Tampa, because it's just such a great city, a great area to live, and everybody's coming here.
And I think, too, one of the sheriff's priorities from the beginning has been the health and wellness of our employees. And unfortunately, we've seen suicides across the nation in law enforcement, and we've really focused on trying to get our employees, not just law enforcement, but civilians, detention deputies, everybody, services they need. We have a mental health counselor on staff now that will be available. We have hired additional chaplains and a variety of services to make sure that their physical and mental well-being are better.
And looking back over the last few years with you guys leading the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, is there a time that stands out to you that kind of makes you smile or makes you laugh with your time together? And obviously a lot has happened over the last few years, but what are you looking back and proud of?
I think a lot of that, we were able to accomplish so much in such a short period of time. I think if I had to be proud of one thing, it's the fact that we've accomplished so much with a new command staff, a young agency, an extremely young agency, and that the two of us, with the help of a lot of talented people around us, we've been able to accomplish so much in such a short period of time, and it's exciting to build on that momentum and continue into 2020.
I agree, and as we see people we grew up with and that we mentor, now we can provide them opportunities to be supervisors, to be leaders, and help us as we move forward and move this agency forward. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do that.
And a reminder to all of our listeners, every episode we're going to take questions from the community. So if you have any questions for us, just make sure you use the hashtag KeepingIt100 on any of our social media. And we're going to dive into some of the questions that the community members have.
All right.
So Lacey Sells Tampa asks, how has HCSO progressed in recruitment and retention of female deputies, the support of those deputies and their families?
I think that's something we've focused on really heavily. And overall, to be a diverse agency, we need to reflect the community that we work for and live in. But we have been recruiting females. I know we were attempting to have an entirely female academy class, and we got pretty high up there. I think we had 13 females in one class, but logistically it comes to some challenges with restrooms and facilities, and it was a challenge to fill it completely, but we've continued to increase those numbers. So we've definitely made an improvement in that, I feel. Our leadership with the sheriff, you can see females in our command staff and at different supervisory levels where they haven't been before. So he's certainly giving people the opportunity, and that's if they're qualified. We're going to make sure, we still are the most professional and qualified law enforcement agency out there, and we are. But it's not for any sacrifice for that.
Yeah, we're more diverse than we've ever been in 174 years. Since we've taken over together the past 2.5 years, we're at a 58.9% diversity rate. And the chief alluded to it earlier. It's important to have a workforce that reflects the community that you serve. And if he or she looks like me, speaks the same language as me, that breaks down those immediate barriers and helps bridge that gap between law enforcement and community. And that's something that we really focused on. We modified and revised a lot of the hiring standards. We eliminated the college requirement, knowing that a lot of minorities, a lot of females, a lot of the population that we wanted to recruit aren't able to afford to go to college. We're going to teach you how to be a police officer. You're going to have plenty to learn and have all ample time to do that. So we modified the hiring standards, and because of it, we hired over double what we've ever hired, and have lowered that gap, that vacancy gap as we move forward. So I'm proud of how we've done that and the improvements that have made, again, in such a short period of time.
And excuse me if I'm pronouncing this person's name wrong, but Angels says that she would like to see HCSO talk about trauma, PTSD, mental health, and how you're addressing it and normalizing it. So obviously a lot to unpack here, but let's first go back to what we were talking about before about our deputies and the mental health that we are providing them, the mental health assistance we're providing them.
You want to talk about the internal programs, and I'll talk about some of the external ones?
Sure. The Jonathan Black program is a program that we have that all our deputies and employees go through it in service to help them deal with their emotional needs. Sometimes our deputies see things that other people should never have to see or hear, and we know it can be disturbing, and that can build up over time. So we want to give them tools and techniques that they can deal with that. So when they go home, they're not shut off from their families, they're not shut off with their friends. That's one program that we make mandatory. We have our employee assistance programs. We have now, as I said, we've expanded our chaplain program and have a mental health counselor on site to help deal with those situations. So we know it's a priority, and what's important, we want to make sure that they know that they can do that without us knowing. It's confidential. It's something they can seek treatment with. We don't need to know about it other than know that they're getting help when they need it.
And it's a tremendous priority for our employees. It's a tremendous priority for our community. It's probably our biggest obstacle moving forward. Someone expects us to say some violent crime or burglary. It's mental health, and it's mental health calls for service, and I think we've made some great strides there. We now have a deputy assigned to each of our 5 patrol districts. We divide our county up into 5 patrol districts, and they monitor the high utilizers. So they're out making contact. Hey, why is someone being Baker Acted 20, 30, 40 times? How can we mitigate that and mitigate calls for service, but also get that individual help? We're in the process of trying to hire 2 social workers, one for the east side and west side. We know where we're missing that gap as we go out there, but we have to help them get the counseling and the services that are available for them. So take that social worker along with the deputy now to talk to this individual and get these individuals the true help they need. Again, not putting a Band-Aid on an individual or a problem, and actually solve the problem. In our detention facility, we have a separate area for veterans, knowing that they have that unique PTSD situation that they deal with. Get them the help that they need, so help healing the community that way, along with a plethora of other services and resources that we're giving our veterans. And we just had our first class graduate, and that's been fantastic. So a lot of it is, again, focused around mental health, even to the point where we made it mandatory that every one of our employees go through a 40-hour advanced training course, which now dealing with mental health, that actually deals with PTSD, which deals with drug-induced behavior. So they're able to identify symptoms, de-escalate situations, and I think make us a much more valuable resource to our community. Even in terms of detention, when we get individuals into our detention facility and we have great resources and we're able to get them the medication they need. Sometimes we even change the medication they take. We get them healthy. They get back out and there's no one there to make sure that they continue to take that medication or they don't have access to that medication. So what we've done is team up with the county commission. So we're one of the few agencies, when they leave there with 30 days worth of medication. Even if they get transferred to another detention facility, they're going to prison, we give them 30 days of their medication to take with them.
So now, right before we sign off, because you guys are officially podcasters, we've done it.
All right.
We're going to do just like a quick little lightning round, super easy, just some kind of questions just to get to know you. But the goal is to answer fast.
Briefs.
Okay, you guys ready? Yes. All right. Favorite color?
Blue.
Green.
Favorite animal?
Dog.
Dog.
Favorite song?
Ooh.
Quickly.
Any
Expose songs.
She loves expose. For me, anything from Coldplay.
Okay. Favorite thing to do outside of work?
Be with my family.
Out on the boat.
Usually it's with the family out on the boat.
Favorite law enforcement agency in Florida?
The
Hillsborough County Sheriff's
Office.
Yay!
Was that a trick question?
It was. Well, thank you guys all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Keeping It 100.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Keeping It 100. To keep up with Team HCSO in between each episode, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at HCSO Sheriff.